To the engineers and those people who are interested in fact, understand that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration during the 55-mile speed limit period became a 100% propaganda agency. Not a single report they were issuing on safety was true. Complete fabrications on every scale. They went to the word related instead of caused, because related, if you saw related in any report back then, it meant the underlying statement didn't have any foundation. What was really scary is while this whole thing was going on for 20 years, I had friends within the Turner Fairbank Research Group at Highway Safety, and they were doing comprehensive studies on the effects before and after speed limit changes on city streets, highways, and everything. And they had hundreds of monitoring stations around the country set up that were separate from what NHTSA was reporting and the states were reporting. And I was looking at that data constantly, weekly. Every state in the country, they had hundreds and hundreds of these locations. And what was interesting is we were looking at the speeds before and after it changed, accident rates before and after it changed, and the overall effect of speed enforcement, unmarked cars versus marked vehicles, the faster vehicles, if they're more likely to be involved in an accident than not, and all these different correlated factors. And what we found is none of the quote-unquote beliefs were true, but the National Highway Traffic Safety had an agenda of enforcement because it became a major industry within this country. With every city, county, state, or entity that had a roadway, it turned it into a profit center with thousands of new employees over that 20-year period that had retired. Now they had to pay the retirement on those people for the judges, the clerks, the officers, the infrastructure. Now they had to go to a whole new level of people to replace them. So they needed new crimes, new offenses, increased fines, zero tolerance. But if you think about it, how can zero tolerance be effective if the primary location they were being used at was where higher speeds are found to be safe? It's because low accidents are occurring. And when you look at all the accidents reports, once you cleared an area where it had congestion or convergence zones, or many of the roads were designed to kill people in this country because it was easy to do and people didn't realize how bad they were. But what happens, once you clear those conflict points or hazard points on the open roads where higher speeds were found, accidents for all causes were virtual zero, and speed, while it was attributed to 50% of the cause, was a complete false narrative on every level. When we look at the actual data, sometimes it was less than 1%, and a higher, it may be 2% on an open highway. Think about that. It was 80% of the enforcement efforts, but 1% of the cause, maybe. In Nevada, my home state at the time, we were looking at 75% of the vehicle accidents, no other vehicles on the road, simply clear open road, run off the road, turn over, whatever. That's not from speed, because there was no curves, no anything, just fatigue, deficits, medical problems, other things. So at the end of the 55-mile limit in 95, we had a meeting at the for all the highway patrol and judges and everybody else in Nevada, and NHTSA put on a meeting about the 85th and how important it was, and they scheduled a whole series of them across the country. So they brought in a subject matter expert who was an acquaintance of mine, and at the time I asked him why he was using the term speed limit and how come all the extra emphasis on enforcement was involved in this presentation. He says, because NHTSA was the sponsor and that was the only way I could get the information presented. But in my speed limit presentation I put up 20 years ago, 80 or 90% of it was that information, but the only problem with it is the term speed limit should have been replaced with the word posted limit, because even then they knew that the speed in excess of the posted limit was always safe. It was never an enforcement threshold. But what happened after that first meeting and that first presentation was made, and I have a copy of the first one that was required to be modified, I went to the next ones, and they were a complete abomination. NHTSA had eliminated any subject matter experts at all. They brought all kinds of crazy sideshows in. They talked about the 85th. They even had engineers talking about things that they knew nothing about, which was obviously at the point. In fact, one of the other things that was going on at the same time is Federal Highways saying before you do a special enforcement program, we need to make sure the speed limits were properly posted, and they flat out rejected that, and it never happened. So that means all these high-profile enforcement programs were focused on areas where the speed limits weren't really properly posted in the first place. And from that day on, NHTSA has been driving a stake in the heart of best practices, safety practices, and anything that doesn't meet their agenda has been eliminated. Some studies sat there for years without approval until the authors changed the conclusions. And moreover, since then, no study has ever been done that didn't support their pre-approved conclusion. So they found favorite people to go to and everything else. And think about this. For 20 years, NHTSA was lying to the public, and their cohort was public broadcasting, USA Today, all the media, everybody had their hand in the till, and they were bought off all cheap, because every time we'd go through them real fast, they didn't want to get involved, because one of their primary easy fills on broadcast was some press release from NHTSA, regardless of its safety merit. And the Insurance Institute, from the day even before the National Highway Safety Act, the repeal of the 55, claimed that at higher speeds are going to kill more people. We're going to lose 6,400 people a year more. None of it was true. And the data proved it's true. Because think about it. What, 16, 17 states have gone to 75 or 80 mile an hour speed limit and the world didn't come to an end? What's killing people is poor practices, and NHTSA going back and gutting all those things that made us safer in the advancement of their police empire and enforcement. Think of it this way. They disbanded the Uniform Vehicle Code, which was the standard to set traffic control by. They disbanded the requirement that adjudication standards be uniform throughout the country. They disbanded fact-based speed limits. They disbanded fact-based stop sign use. They've said that what we now know as unsafe practices for traffic cameras, they've eliminated due process on the camera systems by increasing the efficiency of prosecution and fine collection by eliminating due process and the requirement that the devices meet a certification for proper settings in the first place. And this has been going on for a long time because, just like I said a little bit ago, think of this. One city, 324 million in traffic fines predicated on knowingly unsafe designs or improperly placed devices. Then you see the city of Chicago's doing it. All these cities have decided this is the next coming for money by eliminating due process and increasing the efficiency of fine collections. And NHTSA's gone to saying it's a safety device when it can only survive by monetizing unsafe practices. That's its very foundation. Or my claim under the 9th Amendment, using a reasonable, responsible reaction from a motorist doing something otherwise safe as a technical glitch, as an electronic trigger for a citation when the actual citation is based on an otherwise safe reaction by a person acting responsibly.